Well, good morning, my friends of the tubes. 3 years ago, I made a comment on another YouTuber's video, and he was totally putting down coconut oil as very unhealthy for you. Well, for the last 6 months, I've made a point of making coconut oil an important part of my diet. I add it every morning to my oats. I add it in the afternoons and evenings to other meals, as opposed to using things like lard or bacon fat or even vegetable oil. Now, coconut oil has several benefits as a regular part of your diet. One, at or below 78 degrees, it's a solid. Two, it keeps for immense periods of time as long as it's kept cool. In other words, in its solid state. Three, coconut oil, even though it becomes solidified, is what they call a medium density fat. It burns like carbohydrates in your body. But because it is in fact a fat, a light fat, like medium fat, it makes, how do I want to say this? A dab will do you and keep you from getting hungry as quickly. Now, I'm not going to bother naming this other YouTuber. He was a bodybuilder and claiming to be dispensing medical advice about the ills of coconut oil. And I told him as much, that he was a fool. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some people that cannot eat coconut oil. They have an allergic reaction to it. Please, you have to consult your own physician to see if it's something you can eat. Don't expect me to say that this is good for everybody. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, if you can eat coconut oil, it's a good thing to use in your diet. Now, to prove the point about how good it has been for me, okay, I've made mention of my wife and her cooking and how I suspected her of wishing me ill with her cooking. For the last 4 years, my blood sugar has been sky high. My blood sugar was running between 200 and 350. My wife, she refused to allow me access to the kitchen. She didn't want me in there cooking. She abandoned me back around the 1st of May. So I've been doing all my own cooking, period. Funny thing is, when I started doing all my own cooking, the bouts of diarrhea went away completely, and my blood sugar has plummeted to the normal range. I am not starving myself. I'm actually eating more, and more of what I like. And my blood sugar, matter of fact, this morning, today is Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. I had a huge turkey dinner yesterday, not here in camp. Local church was putting it on. I had 3 big plates full of turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes with gravy, and let's see, there was butternut squash and turnip on the plate and green beans, and I even had 2 big wedges of pie for dessert. Yummy, yummy. Now, most diabetics shouldn't eat that way. Well, I did. My blood sugar this morning was 102. And when I got back to camp here last night, I had a donut for dessert late, about 2 this morning. Now, yes, I'm still taking diabetic medications. But here's what I think has been going on. And please understand, what I'm about to say is anecdotal and my suspicion. It's nothing I can prove as yet. But it is my honest belief that because my blood sugar was so high for so long, that my spouse and or my wife was actually spiking the food they were serving me with table sugar. Intentionally. Mind you, I can't prove it, but that's what I suspect. Because in 6 months, my A1C has gone from 12.8 to 7.1. In 6 months of doing all my own cooking. Now, if you're truly a diabetic out of control, that can't happen. Now, granted, my blood sugar only went to 12.4 because a doctor who was supposedly treating me left the practice and I was never informed. And therefore, my automatic updates from my pills were never called in, and I went 4 months without a single diabetic pill. I finally called up the clinic and said, what the hell is going on? Why are my scripts not being called in a timely fashion? That's when I found out that that particular doctor had left the practice and I was assigned to a new doctor. And she has done a marvelous job ever since. Now, granted, over 2 years in spite of what was going on at the house, she brought my blood sugar down from 12.4 to 9.8. Almost 2 years to get it to drop that little bit. And it's gone the rest of the way in less than 6 months that I've been doing all of my own cooking. More than twice the distance in 6 months that she was able to do in 2 years with pills. Now you understand why I say I suspect that the soon-to-be former spouse was spiking my food with sugar at home. Not to mention that between either her or the daughter or somebody spiked foods that only I ate, i.e. cornmeal, i.e. rolled oats, was something else, because during May, June, and July, I had all kinds of trouble with diarrhea. And I finally figured it out when I sniffed the oats, that there was something in them that didn't belong. But again, this is suspicion and anecdotal information. I can't prove anything. But it is my honest belief. So boys, when you have a spouse who tells you out and out she wants out, tell her there's the door, don't let the knob hit you where the good Lord split you. Get out. The sooner the quicker. Or you get out. The sooner the quicker. You see, my soon-to-be ex told me in February that she was leaving. I thought she was just being pissy, because that's her normal default. Nag, 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 pissy attitude all the time. Turns out maybe she really had ill intent. I can only assume that things that went wrong with my health in the way they went wrong with my health point to this. So, just a rant from here at Camp Smithy. Thought I'd share some information and my thoughts. Now, in connection with my thoughts about there being poison in the oats and poison in the cornmeal, I'm not just blowing smoke here, boys and girls. There's no doubt in my mind that the oats and cornmeal were poisoned. The only thing I'm not positive of is how they got there. So let me be clear about this. I cannot prove how the toxin got into the oats or cornmeal. I can tell you that when I realized that that's where the poison was coming from, I took a sniff and it smelled like a toilet freshening block. And I promptly poured out the oats around the base of a tree out in the woods. And when I went back 3 days later, I found half a dozen squirrels dead laying around the pile where the oats were. The oats were gone until I split open the squirrels and found the oats in the bellies of the squirrels. And I'm not saying they were laying right where the pile was. I mean, laying around that general vicinity. I found half a dozen of them. Probably more were killed by the oats. But I found a half a dozen dead with bellies full of oats. Now you tell me, what killed the squirrels? chances are there was something in the oats that killed him. Chances are somebody was trying to kill somebody with those oats. And since the wife and daughter did all the grocery shopping, you tell me, what am I supposed to think? And since they wouldn't eat oats or cornmeal mush, that slap was their quote. That's a fact. That's a fact, I'll tell you that. They wouldn't touch the oats or the cornmeal because that's slap. But yet they did all the shopping. So, like I said, you put 2 and 2 together and tell me if you come up with 6. Because that's where I came up with my thoughts on this matter. But let me be clear. I can't prove what I think as to the who. That's the important words. 4 most important words here is I can't prove it. But circumstantial evidence says that's what happened. So that's an opinion. Let me be crystal clear of that. Trust me, if I could prove it, people would be behind bars. So, for now, I'm going to get back to eating my breakfast. Yes, my breakfast is oatmeal. And for those who think oatmeal is slop, science has proven that eating rolled oats with cinnamon is good for your digestion. It lowers cholesterol. It lowers blood sugars. It's just plain and simple good for you. So, if you've got to doctor the oats up to make them taste better to you, do so. I quite frequently like to pre-boil up some raisins to plump them up and throw them in. Or dried cherries, I do the same thing. Boil them and plump them up good. I do that a day or 2 in advance, put them in a jar with juice and let them soak. And then add them, a couple tablespoons to a pot of oats for flavor. The fact is, if you don't enjoy the taste of the cooked oats by itself, find a way to make them taste good. Add a packet of hot cocoa mix if you can have the sugar. I'm not saying how you flavor them is important. The fact that you eat them is important. So let me tell you how I have been preparing my pot of oats every day. Now this is a basic pot of oats. 2 cups of water, half a teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of dried 1-minute oat flakes, rolled oats. Bring the water and salt and cinnamon to a boil. Now be careful, cinnamon is hydrophobic. Where do we know that word hydrophobic from? Well, from animals that suffer from rabies. The term means fearing water, okay? You can sprinkle cinnamon on top of a pot of water and bring it to the boil, and it will act like a lid, and it will seal in the steam, and your pot will boil over. So, when you're adding cinnamon to your water, either 1, bring the water to the boil first and then remove it from heat and add your cinnamon, or 2, here's how I do it, stir the cinnamon into the cold water and then carefully keep an eye on it while you bring it up to the boil. Once you reach the boil, this is when you add your oats, and you stir and boil for 1 minute. Remove from heat, put a lid on the pot, and now I like to wrap my pot up in my little cozy towel. And I leave it set for 10 minutes wrapped up in that towel, that little pot, with the lid on, to allow the oats to completely hydrate. I like my oats stiff. Some people like it running. Your choice. I then bring it out of the cozy, add my sweetener, add my coconut oil, stir it all together, and consume, you end up with approximately 3 cups of cooked oats. Good belly filler. When you add, now, where did I put it? Got it. Oh, there it is. Nope, that's the empty bottle. I had it here to show you the bottle, and now I've misplaced it. When I added the coconut oil was solid. Oh, there it is. Here's the newly opened bottle of coconut oil. So I'm going to show you how much was removed. Let me turn you around here. There we go. That is 2 breakfasts for coconut oil. That's about almost a tablespoon and a half taken out of that jar. So I split that in half between 2 meals. And I put it into my pot and stirred it in. This is solid because, believe it or not, Thanksgiving night, 2017, here in Connecticut, we hit 18 degrees. Brr. Now, like I said, I've also got an empty jar here. Why did I keep the empty jar? This is from 3 days ago. Because I also bought a honking huge tub of coconut oil that I could probably fill this pot 3 or 4 times from it. And so what I will do is I will reload the small use tubs from the big tub. And let me tell you, it's a honker. Got it from Ocean State. $8 for, what was it, 60 ounces? Something like that, 50 or 60 ounces of coconut oil. That's a big tub of coconut oil. When you're only using a half a tablespoon at a time for breakfast. 90% of what I use coconut oil is in my breakfast. And then I'll have a peanut butter sandwich or a ham sandwich or whatever for lunch. Sometimes I'll just have a can of chicken noodle soup with some chicken meat added to it. Sometimes I'll splurge and have the soup and the sandwich. And then for supper, well, I've shown you several of the things that I've been eating from Bear Creek. And like I said, that Bear Creek package is supposed to be anywhere from 3 to 8 servings, depending on which variety you're eating. Case in point, cheddar potato soup. Add 8 cups of water to 1 package. Supposedly that's 8 one-cup servings. Typically, I'll put away half of it for tomorrow and eat the other half tonight for supper. Whether that's today or next week, I'm saying the day I cook it. That night, I'll have half of it for supper and put the other half away in a container in my cooler for the next day's meal. I'll add crackers, I'll add dried bread cubes, whatever to soups, just to bulk it up a little bit. The main idea is the soup is the flavor, and some bread or crackers is the filler. This is how I've been eating for 6 months. Full belly every day, 3 times a day. Not fancy, but filling. Sometimes for lunch, I'll have a package of mashed taters. Here, let me set that aside. Got one right here on the dash because I've already been planning for my lunch today. Idaho mashed taters. I'll throw one of these into the prerequisite amount of hot water. And I use butter buds, or I'll use real butter depending on what I have on hand. And then I'll pour from a can of gravy over it. And that's lunch. Maybe I'll add some meat to it. But lunchtime, usually not. I'll just pour the gravy over the potatoes, and that's lunch, if that's what I'm having. See, the problem is, this is a high glycemic meal. What does that mean, high glycemic? Nothing pushes a diabetic sugar harder or faster than potatoes, white bread, that sort of thing. Pot of oats is an extremely low glycemic meal, especially when sweetened and treated the way I've treated this: cinnamon, salt, artificial sweeteners, and coconut oil. I might not even need to make lunch today. I might go all the way to supper before I eat again because of the coconut oil. That's what I'm trying to tell you. A dab of coconut oil will make this stay, how's the old saying go? Make it stick to your ribs longer.
By the way, don't forget to